because we're only a couple of weeks out from tomorrow, in fact, from 2 weeks out from Jim Chalmers. He's got to deliver the next budget. Challenging times for him, though, right now, with inflation proving sticky. The coalition says you need to have a surplus, a structural surplus, not just the windfall surplus, in order to put downward pressure on inflation.
Yeah, well, achieving surpluses at any time is rare and to be commended. So you have to make sure, though, that the surplus you create isn't so punitive in the way in which it's achieved that it actually really drives down employment and standards of living. So, look, this is an argument that they were probably having during the Rum Rebellion, to be honest. You know, what do you go for? Do you go for wage increases at times like this, or do you go for, because people are feeling the effects of inflation, or do you try to cut the surplus, to cut the deficit more to make it all more manageable at that end? This is a balancing game, really, for the Treasurer, and it's one that no one, I think, would really wish on anyone to try to do, because it is so hard to make sure that people who are feeling the pressure, as we're seeing and amongst people in low-income jobs at the moment, and people on fixed incomes are really doing it very hard and very tough. But at the same time, you know, we want to keep making sure that inflation keeps coming down, because ultimately that's where the solutions lie, at least in the medium term, to ongoing structural issues in the Australian economy. It's a worldwide problem as well. So we shouldn't assume that this is something that's unique to Australia. It's tough, and I think he will do it selectively. I think he'll provide some cost of living relief in selected areas where people are really feeling it hard. But essentially, they'll be trying to make sure that the overall effect of the budget is to keep inflation coming down and therefore interest rates coming down before the next election.
The challenges for the government, but Kerry, the same limitations in an election year, what is essentially now an election year, for the coalition as well, in terms of the guardrails or restrictions within which they've got to operate without overdoing it on the spending front. They can't do it either.
Yeah. Well, that's the challenge, because the challenge for the Treasurer, and also indeed for the Shadow Treasurer, is how you actually balance the economic and the political, because there are economic pressures on the government, which is about, to what Bruce has just been talking about, making sure that you don't add to the inflationary pressures through the budget. But there's also the political pressure on the government, which is that their people are out there crying out for cost of living relief, and whether that's through energy subsidies or through changes to the taxation in relation to fuel, all of those things are going to be playing on the Treasurer's mind. When you move forward and when you're looking at the opposition trying to work out what sort of policies they're going to have to advance to the Australian community before the next election, it's the same issue. What are the levers that they're going to be able to suggest can be pulled to actually help people with that cost of living? Because, the reality is that the only one that the Reserve Bank has got is interest rates. That's a pretty big whack. But at the end of the day, it's only affecting about 30 to 40% of mortgage holders. I mean, that's it. That's not everybody in the Australian community has a mortgage. So they're not actually impacted as much by those things, except, of course, when it applies to, when you get rental increases and all those sorts of things. But I mean, the real issue for the opposition is, what are they going to be able to say to the community which will actually encourage them to believe that they have got a handle on bringing down the cost of living?
Yeah, indeed.